Of all animals, these must be the most beautiful, sculpted by nature to enable them to hunt for the food they need. These animals must kill to survive, and they're armed for the purpose. They're predators. There are predators of all sizes which attack an infinite variety of prey. The lion is the most powerful of these carnivores, but the hierarchy is more complex than it might seem. In each species there are the weak and the strong, who have first claim on the prey. Mammals are not the only ones who feed on other animals. Marabous, which generally prefer carrion, are having a real feast with these fish. Here and there, traces remain that show that the law of the strongest has been at work. Each predator hunts in its own way, putting its particular skills to good use. The jackal trots busily to and fro over the savannah, while the lords of the land save their strength. The gnu is a very large prey for a cheetah, and rather an unusual one. It's not enough to seize the gnu by the throat, it has to be brought down. The odds are not basically in favor of the cheetah. An adult gnu is about 5 times heavier. But by hunting in twos, these big cats get the upper hand and leave their victim virtually no hope of escape. The cheetah must persist and keep a tight grip on its victim until it suffocates. Now that the meal is served, they still have to make sure there's no competition on the horizon, so they can enjoy it where it fell and won't have to carry it off and hide it. With this kind of prey, there's plenty to eat for 2 and for several days. An adult cheetah only needs about 6 pounds of meat a day. Still, it's quite likely that the cheetahs will never actually finish their carcass. They may well be spotted by lions, wild dogs, or hyenas. In that case, cheetahs prefer to avoid a fight. They abandon their meal and run away. But for the moment, all is quiet, and they feast contentedly. Apart from elephants, perhaps, there are few animals on the savannah that have nothing to fear. Giraffes are not easy prey, especially in a group. And yet this lioness, probably very hungry to be hunting in the middle of the day, has made up her mind to have a go. It's the classic ploy: creep up as close as possible to about 30 yards from the group, the ideal distance for launching the attack. The giraffes have sensed that the lioness is near, but don't seem all that worried. They just move away gradually as she approaches. Eventually the lioness gives up. The giraffes stayed in a group apart from one big male, but he would be too dangerous to attack. There is easier game on the horizon, but so far this group of topis doesn't seem unduly concerned. It's very hot, and the lioness decides to retreat from the parched savannah and look for some shade in the dry riverbed. Lions also go for smaller prey. They're particularly partial to these small wild African pigs called warthogs. This lioness has got her eye on a young one. The rest of the family will get away, but this one hasn't a chance. When lions attack large prey, they kill them by suffocation. They throttle them with their jaws. This little warthog died a quick death. The lioness broke its spine. A sign that times are hard and food is scarce, the whole family falls upon this meager meal. This raw-boned lioness is not part of the group. She doesn't get a look in. And yet she belongs to the same family as all the other females in the clan. In any one group, the lionesses are all sisters, mothers, or grandmothers. But in the savannah, there's no pity for weak or sickly animals. This is the dominant female, and she takes the choice morsel for herself. The tragic law of the strongest is reflected in the contemptuous look she gives the weakest female. Unlike the cheetah, the leopard is strong and stocky and firmly planted on its powerful legs. The males are up to 3 feet tall at the withers and weigh around 110 pounds, although the females are often only half that weight. This time the leopard is forced to go against his instincts and hunt by day. Small Thompson gazelles are one of his favourite meals, but he will not turn up his nose at lion cubs, stork, monkeys, or domestic animals. On a single territory, leopards have been known to feed on about 30 different species. His success rate at hunting is among the lowest of all the big cats, below 10%, and it's even lower if we only take daytime hunting into account. As soon as a leopard has killed its prey, he drags it up a tree to put it out of reach of stronger rivals. This one has ensconced himself right at the top of a tree with a straight trunk that lionesses, which perch comfortably on lower branches, cannot climb. Disturbed by the smell of rotting meat and the scent of one of their least favourite cousins, the lionesses lay siege to the leopard's retreat. The big spotted cat, who likes to live alone and never stays longer with a female than the shortest time necessary for mating, finds this promiscuity distasteful and tries to distance himself by climbing higher up the tree. Eventually he decides to leave his refuge for now, even though he knows that if he's caught, he's likely to get the worst of it. Lions regularly inflict harm on other predators. They often go for cheetahs, leopards and hyenas that don't respect their supremacy at mealtimes. Vultures doing their morning rounds were quick to locate a welcome bonus, the fresh corpse of a hyena killed in the night by a lioness who resented its attempts to get at her prey. They congregate to consume without a second thought an animal that was a carrion eater like them, and that under normal circumstances they would be competing with for the best pieces of the carcass of a zebra or a gazelle. As usual, it's a noisy, quarrelsome feast. A marabou helped himself before the others arrived. He fished out a few yards of intestine and has moved off to one side to savour them undisturbed. These African vultures don't have very strong beaks. The hyena's tough skin is very difficult for them to penetrate, so they resort to the expedient of slipping their long necks in through the animal's natural orifices to get at its insides. While trying to avoid a vulture that was threatening it, the marabou has got itself into an awkward situation. Its feet have got caught up in the hyena's intestine, and the more it tries to extricate itself, the more it gets tangled. The hyena turns out to be very difficult to eat into, and the vultures seem rather put out by this intact carcass. It would have been easier for them if a predator had come by beforehand and chewed it up a bit. As if he had deliberately set out to entertain them, the marabou comes back and repeats his performance as the inept and pathetic carrion eater, seriously hampered by his most unusual appendage. Even if it's not a choice meal, more vultures keep arriving on the scene, mainly attracted by the presence of the others. Further down the plain, a cheetah goes hunting. Of all the big cats, the cheetah is the only one that only hunts by day. This magnificent animal has a streamlined body with high shoulders and haunches, and runs more like a greyhound than a leopard or a lion. Every now and then the cheetah looks for a little hillock to get a better view of the horizon in case there's a suitable prey in sight. This herd of zebra and gnu doesn't look very promising, unless perhaps at this time of year there are young that would be easy prey if they could be cut off from the group. The cheetah uses its unique morphology to take huge strides. In a few seconds it can be doing 45 miles an hour. The cheetah doesn't persist. Not out of laziness, but because it doesn't have the stamina. This sprinter has run at more than 60 miles an hour. He's the fastest land animal on Earth, but he can't keep up that pace for more than about 20 seconds. After such a violent burst of energy, it takes him a good half hour to recover. The cheetah's morphology is ideal for open spaces where it can make the best use of its speed and of another unusual feline characteristic. Its claws are not retractile, giving it a firm grip on the ground when it's hunting and making it easy to change direction. When it's closing in on its prey, the cheetah freezes whenever he thinks he might be noticed. This time he tries to cut off a young zebra from its mother. The adult provides very effective protection, and the young animal safely rejoins the herd. This large cat, with its long ears ending in a characteristic brush of hairs, is a caracal, a sort of African lynx. The caracal is a medium-sized predator weighing about 30 pounds and around 2.5 feet high at the withers. This is a shy, secretive animal, difficult to observe. He's a loner with his own territory. When evening comes, he paces up and down his domain looking for those 2 pounds of meat he needs every day to survive. The caracal mainly feeds on young gazelle, hare, birds, mongoose and small rodents, but he can also attack prey the size of a gazelle or a sheep. As the caracal sets out to hunt, the lioness spends some quality time with her cubs. The lion cubs are already several months old, and their mother devotes herself wholeheartedly to them. She guides them, teaches them the rudiments of life and hunting, and is often very affectionate with them. In the relatively short life of a lion, which seldom exceeds 12 years, these first few months certainly seem the happiest, the most carefree. The young lions know nothing yet of the struggles they'll have to go through to conquer a clan, of the seasons when food and water will be hard to find, of old age, which will overtake them so quickly after barely 2 years in the prime of life. The sun has set over the savannah, and the caracal has found its prey, a large bustard it pounced on as it was about to take flight. If it misses its prey or can't bring it down after pursuing it over a few dozen yards, the caracal gives up. Like the cheetah, it can only run in short bursts. Before devouring the bird, the caracal strips all its feathers off. At breeding time, they use the feathers to line a den abandoned by another animal to make a comfortable home for their litter of 2, 3 or 4 young. A new day dawns. During the night, under cover of darkness, predators have struck. This spotted hyena has killed a young gnu. In spite of their reputation, hyenas don't only eat carrion. Sometimes they can be efficient hunters, and in groups they're quite formidable. Inevitably, it's not long before the usual ritual begins. As soon as a predator has killed its prey, the jackals arrive. Between hyenas and jackals, there's a long tradition of skirmishes and attacks, more intended to intimidate than anything else. The hyena is in no real danger of being robbed of his prey, but it would be easier for him to enjoy it if he were left in peace. He shifts it a few yards as if somehow that might make a difference. These are black-backed jackals, one of 3 species encountered in East Africa. Black-backed jackals are the oldest members of the canine family, dating back 1,500,000 years. The hyena's jaws are so powerful they could twist a wolf trap, and they enable it to consume virtually every part of its victim. Also, it can digest almost anything, not only meat, but even bones and skin. The fact that the hyena almost entirely devours its prey is a major problem for jackals. If they don't grab themselves a piece fast, there'll soon be nothing left to steal. If you want something to eat, the jackal must take the risk of getting very near, in the hope that with a full stomach the hyena will react more slowly. It's not a big piece, but it'll do for this early morning meal. Tawny eagles, which are often found in pairs, have arrived on the scene now. These sedentary eagles usually steal their food from other predators. They eat carrion, but they too sometimes kill. As he lands, he's hoping there'll be a piece left for him. The hyena has finally left the remains of the skin to one of the jackals. He's sated, having swallowed more than 20 pounds in a single meal. Now he's got to digest it. He ambles off with that characteristic gait to find somewhere quiet. Now that the hyena has gone, the jackals contemplate what's left for them to eat, or perhaps to hide somewhere for later. Jackals are also excellent hunters that don't hesitate to attack respectable-sized prey like Thompson gazelle, which are more than twice their weight. When they hunt in pairs, jackals often kill gazelles, but if they're alone, they sometimes find themselves in the curious position of being chased by their intended victim. Even if they don't manage to kill a gazelle, jackals are not going to die of hunger. They're opportunistic omnivores, and as they wander over the savannah, they eat whatever they find: reptiles, fruit, grubs, and even mushrooms. Jackals are generally monogamous, and they form couples for life, occupying a territory of between 1/4 and 3/4 of a square mile, which they mark regularly with their urine. Smells play an essential role for all animals. It's a very subtle means of communication. When two hyenas meet, they recognize each other by sniffing and licking each other. The generally accepted idea is that hyenas are cruel, barbarous, and despicable, but actually they're sociable animals with quite sophisticated social habits. When you see a pair of hyenas, it's very difficult to tell if they're of the same sex or opposite sexes, especially when, like these two, they're the same size, although it's fair to say that the females tend to be larger than the males. A cheetah has just killed a Thompson gazelle. This big cat depends entirely on his ability to hunt, because unlike other predators, he will not eat carrion. The cheetah may have the elegance of a refined animal, but like most predators, he has a rather inelegant way of beginning his meal with the natural orifices of his prey. The cheetah has only just started his meal when he gets the scent of a lioness approaching on the other side of the river. The cheetah is right to be wary, because whenever a lion can avoid having to hunt, it will, by stealing another big cat's prey. The lioness eventually goes on her way, and the cheetah, after hiding behind a bush for a while, can get on with his meal. Lions are the only big cats that live in groups. A clan usually comprises from 1 to 7 adult males, which share from 4 to 18 females. They watch over their young together. An isolated lion is often either sick, old, or rejected by its group. By itself, life is much more difficult for it. This lioness is being pestered by flies that keep biting her. When there are a lot of them, the animal can be so badly bitten that it will die. This lioness was wounded in a violent dispute with one of her own kind. A healthy lion's success rate when hunting is between 15 and 30%. But when it's weakened, it can easily be outdistanced by its prey, and so has considerably less chance of getting enough food. Then the lion must lower its aspirations and even settle for a different diet. At any rate, this one will have to do without the delicious taste of gazelle, which are too fast for her now. This old lioness has quite reasonably chosen to stalk a defenseless prey, a young gnu abandoned by its parents in the long grasses. The gnu hardly had time to stand up, and it was no trouble for the lioness to seize this rather ignominious prey. One way or another, the main thing is to get those 20 pounds of meat, which will amply satisfy her daily need. As long as it's not stolen from her by another scraggy lioness that happens by. There'll soon be nothing left of the little gnu, which barely survived 2 days in the savannah. That's the way life is for predators, so many cruel scenes, interspersed with occasional unexpected moments of gentleness. These young hyenas were born a few weeks ago. They came into the world after a gestation period of 3.5 months. Hyenas usually have 2 cubs in a litter. They weigh a little over 3 pounds at birth, and they're already almost fully formed. They're steady on their legs and already have sharp little canine teeth and incisors. The cubs are very playful, and their games are always based on mock attacks, as if they were already training for the struggles of their daily existence in adult life. They already know how to use their jaws, which will be incredibly strong when they're fully grown. Each female has given birth in an individual den, always located in the center of their territory. Later, the young run from one den to the other to play with cubs of their own age. The dens are often shelters abandoned by other animals that the hyenas arrange to suit their needs. They like to make several entrances and tunnels so the young can escape from predators. The adult hyenas that can be seen around the den are all females. As soon as the young are born, the adult males are driven away. The cubs can eat meat from the age of 2.5 months, but they don't eat it regularly until much later, around 8.5 months. In the meantime, what could be better than suckling at a mother's breast? Hyena cubs go on feeding on their mother's milk until they're just about a year old. Weaning is a traumatic experience for them. No more mother love. Time now to get down to the serious business of joining the hunt and learning how to catch their prey. These cubs won't be able to hunt efficiently until they're 18 months old. the start of a new day on the savannah. It was a fatal night for a zebra that was set upon when it came to drink. The lioness that killed it hasn't started eating it yet. She's probably still full from her last meal and considers there'll be time for that later. For the moment, she enjoys the freshness of the morning, a good time to play with her young. Lionesses give birth to litters of between 2 and 6 cubs. The gestation period is very short for such a large mammal, just 100 to 120 days. The lion cubs are delicate up to the age of 18 months, but at this early stage with their mothers, they probably have the best time of their lives. This lioness is carrying something infinitely precious between her jaws. It's not a choice morsel of some felled animal. It's her baby. This cub has just been born. It weighs less than 4.5 pounds. It's still blind and utterly defenseless. The lioness carries her offspring to keep it safe. If she leaves it, even for a moment, she knows she won't see it alive again. The lion cub only begins to open its eyes from the 3rd day, and will only take its first steps about a week later. In early life, a lion cub is always at risk. There's danger everywhere, from other predators, but also even from its own family. When a male lion becomes head of a clan, his first concern is to kill all the cubs less than a year old. It's his way of ensuring that from now on the group's progeny will be descended from him. Some of the young can escape. A mother will sometimes run away with one of her cubs to keep it alive and protect it. In that case, the cub had better stay right behind her and never stray, never be tempted to play truant. This lion cub has been abandoned by his mother, which sometimes happens when the lionesses prefer only to look after the more vigorous and resourceful of their young. It can't survive by itself, so it follows a lioness with 2 cubs of her own, hoping she'll adopt it and take it under her protection. The cub follows at a distance, knowing that he'll need to tread very carefully, and that he'll have to try and approach the other cubs gradually and join in their games. The young, abandoned lion cub doesn't look as though he stands much chance of getting any affection from this lioness. She's aware of his presence and hardly seems to appreciate his effort to ingratiate himself. Instinct tells this cub, which still has the ocellated fur of infancy, that he must keep trying and somehow get himself adopted by this mother, because the alternative is almost certainly death. The little lion, whose ribs are already showing from hunger, takes the plunge and edges nearer. The lioness hits out. She won't have anything to do with this intruder or even tolerate his presence. Once she's sure she's driven him away for good, the lioness returns to the purely selfish happiness that her young are lucky to share with her. The abandoned little lion cub moves despondently away. After one last look back at the life he wanted so much to share, he ambles aimlessly away, resigned to his tragic fate. He can try to survive a few days catching small prey. Perhaps there's still a glimmer of hope of finding a more hospitable family. For now, he shelters in the shade of a clump of trees, as all lions do in the heat of the day on the savannah.